They burned it down. The temple, our temple. They walked in like they owned it because they did. They melted the menorah, slaughtered pigs on the altar, and laughed. That sound, I still hear it. I was just a priest's son. No crown, no throne, no army. Just a name my father gave me and a fire in my chest I didn't know what to do with. So I picked up a sword. 3 years later we walked back into Jerusalem. Our feet, our hands, our people. We cleaned the altar stone by stone. We found one small jar of oil just enough for one day. It burned for 8. The world still celebrates that night, every single year. But no one talks about what came before that night. What I had to do, who I had to become, what I had to give away to win. Tonight you'll hear 2 stories about my life. One will make you call me a hero. The other might make you question everything. Both are true. Both are documented. Both are mine. And when it's over you decide. My name is Judas Maccabeus. And I have been dead for over 2,000 years. But the story they tell about me is still not complete. It was 167 BC. The Greek king Antiochus IV had decided that God was outdated. He walked into Jerusalem like a conqueror. Because he was. He banned the Torah, banned circumcision, banned the Sabbath. He didn't just want our land. He wanted our soul. My father was a priest named Mattathias. Old man, quiet man, man of God, until the day a Greek soldier stood in our village square and demanded we bow. My father looked at that soldier and said no. Then he picked up a sword. That was the day I understood where I got it from. My father didn't live long enough to see what came next. He passed the sword to me. 5 brothers. 1 mission. Take back what was ours. We had no professional army. No chariots. No cavalry. No siege weapons. What we had was the hills of Judea and the rage of people who had nothing left to lose. We fought like ghosts. Hit fast. Disappear. Hit again. The Greeks called it chaos. We called it survival. And slowly, village by village, something shifted. People started joining us. Farmers. Shepherds. Old men who hadn't held a weapon in decades. Because when your identity is being erased, you either fight or you disappear. I chose to fight. And what happened next changed history. Not just for my people, for the entire world. Let me tell you what it felt like to walk into Jerusalem. After 3 years of sleeping on dirt, eating nothing, watching brothers die beside me. We came through the gates and the city was silent. Not peaceful silent. Broken silent. The Temple Mount was unrecognizable. The altar defiled. The courts overgrown. The smell of pig blood still in the stone. I stood there and I didn't cry. I felt something colder than grief. Determination. We had 60 days. 60 days to cleanse the temple before the anniversary of its desecration. Every priest we had left working through the night, scrubbing, rebuilding, consecrating stone by stone. And then came the moment. The menorah needed to be lit. We searched everywhere for ritually pure oil untouched by Greek hands. We found one small jar, sealed, clean, enough for exactly 1 day. I made the decision to light it anyway, because waiting for more oil meant leaving the temple dark. And I refused to let them darken that place one more night. So we lit it, and it burned. Day 1. Day 2. By day 4, every priest in that Rome knew something was happening that none of us could explain. Day 8, the oil was still burning. The Book of Maccabees records what happened in that temple. They celebrated the dedication of the altar for 8 days, and there was very great joy among the people. That celebration became Hanukkah, a festival still lit in every Jewish home. Every single year, 2,000 years later. People asked me, was it worth it? The years in the hills, the hunger, the brothers I buried. I think about a child somewhere lighting a candle tonight, a child who has never heard my name, and I know the answer. Yes, it was worth every single day. But I need you to understand something. The miracle of the oil, that was God. The 3 years before it, that was us. Blood and strategy and impossible decisions. And the most impossible decision of all hadn't come yet. After the temple, the Greeks didn't stop. Antiochus was humiliated. And humiliated kings don't go home quietly. He sent more armies. Bigger. Better equipped. More brutal. The first time we faced his full force in open battle, they came with elephants. Elephants. My brother Eleazar saw one wearing royal armor and thought it was carrying the king himself. He ran underneath it, drove his steer up into its belly. The elephant fell on top of him. He died, saving people he would never meet. I carried that with me into every battle after. We were outnumbered. Always. 10-1. Sometimes 20-1. But we kept winning. Not because we were stronger. Because we knew every valley, every ridge, every shadow in those hills. And because our people were fighting for something the Greek soldiers were not. Home. Battle after battle. Emmaus. Beth Zor. Beth Horon. Names most people have never heard. But in each of those places, a handful of farmers with swords held off the most powerful military machine in the Western world. History calls it a miracle. I call it what happens when you give people no other choice. And then came the moment that changed everything. Not a battle. Not a miracle. A letter. Word reached me that Rome, the rising power in the West, was watching what we were doing. Rome had its own reasons to weaken the Greek Empire. And Rome was looking for allies. I made a decision. I sent envoys to Rome. We signed a treaty, the Treaty of Friendship between Judea and Rome. A formal alliance. mutual protection, recognized sovereignty. For the first time in generations, Judea had a seat at the table of world powers. My people had been a footnote in someone else's empire. Now we had a voice. I thought that was victory. And maybe it was. For a while. If this story is moving something deep inside you right now, just type "Amen" in the comments. Let me know you're here with me. But wait. There is something historians have debated for centuries. Something the official story, the celebrated story, quietly skips over. That treaty with Rome? It didn't just protect us. It changed us. The same power we invited in to shield us from Greece would one day send its own legions through those same gates. The gates we bled to reclaim. I believed I was protecting my people. I believed Rome was a partner, an equal, a friend. But history is never that clean. Everything I just told you is true. The temple, the oil, the battles, the victory. But so is this. There is another way to read my life. A harder way. A way that asks not what I won but what I open the door to. Let me ask you something. When you make a deal with a wolf to chase away a fox who comes for your sheep next, I knew what Rome was. I wasn't naive. I had studied what they did to Carthage, to Macedonia, to every nation that got too close. Rome didn't make friends. Rome made dependencies. But I told myself we were different. We were stronger, smarter, more united. I told myself Judea would be the exception. I was wrong. Here is what the treaty actually said. On the surface, mutual defense, friendship, respect. But what it really created was a precedent. The precedent that Judea's security depended on a foreign power's goodwill. Not on God. Not on our own strength. On Rome. And once you accept that, once you let that idea take root in your people's mind, it doesn't leave. Think about what happened after me. My brothers took power. The Hasmonean dynasty. And within 2 generations they were fighting each other for the throne. 2 brothers. 2 armies. Both sides invited Rome to intervene. They actually sent ambassadors to Rome and asked them to pick a winner. In 63 BC, General Pompey walked into Jerusalem. Not as an enemy. As an arbitrator. He walked into the Holy of Holies, the most sacred room in the temple. The room only the high priest could enter. Once a year, Pompey walked in, looked around, and walked back out. Just to show that he could. That was the Rome I had invited to be our friend. I think about that moment more than I think about Hanukkah. Because Hanukkah was God's miracle. Pompey was mine. Not directly. Not intentionally. But the road that led him through those gates started with the letter I sent. The treaty I signed. The alliance I was so proud of. Was I wrong to fight the Greeks? No. Was I wrong to want sovereignty for my people? No. But did I understand what I was truly trading when I handed Rome a foothold in our world? I don't think I did. And here is the harder question. The one I asked myself in the silence. If I had known, if someone had shown me a vision of Pompey in that holy room, would I have still signed the treaty? I want to say no. I want to say I would have found another way. But the truth is, I was watching my people bleed. I was burying brothers every season. And Rome was there. Powerful. Willing. Offering exactly what I needed. Desperate men make deals they can't fully see the end of. That is not an excuse. It is an explanation. And there is a difference. There is something else. Something I rarely get credit for or blame for, depending on how you see it. The way I fought. I was not just a soldier. I was a strategist. And some of my strategies made religious leaders deeply uncomfortable. There was a battle early in the revolt. The Greeks discovered that some of our fighters refused to defend themselves on the Sabbath. So the Greeks attacked on the Sabbath. And our men stood near and died. Because they believed God's law forbade them to raise a sword on that holy day. 1,000 people gone. I made a ruling. If we are attacked on the Sabbath, we fight back. Preservation of life overrides the day of rest. It was the right decision. Militarily. Practically. But it was also a leader making his own interpretation of God's law. Not a priest. Not a prophet. A general. And once a general starts deciding which parts of the law apply in which situation, where does that end? I told myself it was survival. And it was. But it was also something quieter and more dangerous. It was the beginning of political religion. The idea that faith can be shaped by whoever holds the sword. My family, the Hasmoneans, took that idea further than I ever intended. They became high priests and kings simultaneously. Something that was never supposed to happen in our tradition. The religious and the political, separate for a reason, merged. Under my family's name. I did not live to see all of it. I died in battle at Elasa. 160 BC. Outnumbered. Abandoned by most of my army. 800 men against thousands. I could have retreated. I didn't. Some say that was courage. Some say that was pride. Maybe it was both. Maybe by then I was tired of the weight of every decision I had ever made. The alliance with Rome. The Sabbath ruling. The wars that never seemed to end. Maybe dying in battle felt simpler than living with the consequences. I don't say that to make you feel sorry for me. I say it because if you are going to judge my life, judge all of it. Not just the miracle of the oil. Not just the treaty with Rome. All of it. Together. Because there is one account, one ancient record that most people have never read. A document that sits quietly in the back of certain Bibles. That describes not just what I did but what it cost. The names of every brother I lost. The towns that burned while we were busy winning. The people who suffered on both sides of my sword. There is one document the church did not always want you to read. And it has been sitting there the whole time. So now you know. Both sides. Both truths. both versions of the same man. Let me tell you what Scripture actually records, not my interpretation, not a historian's opinion. What the text says. The book of 1 Maccabees, written within living memory of these events, describes a man who wept over the desolation of Jerusalem, who refused to eat, who tore his clothes in mourning, who then stood up and fought, not for glory, for the house of God. That same book records the treaty with Rome. Chapter 8. It describes Judas sending envoys, negotiating terms, seeking alliance. It presents it not as betrayal but as wisdom. They shall help them with all their heart. The text doesn't condemn the alliance. It commends it. And yet, 2 Maccabees, a different account, written from a different perspective, focuses less on the politics, more on the miracles, the faith, the martyrs. It barely mentions Rome at all, as if the alliance was something better left unexamined. 2 books, same events, different silences. That is not a contradiction. That is history. Every generation records what it needs to believe. The document I told you about, the one sitting quietly in the back of certain Bibles, is 2 Maccabees, chapter 6 and 7. It records the martyrs, the people who died rather than eat pork, rather than abandon the Torah. A mother who watched 7 sons die one by one and did not break. These are the people I was fighting for. And here is what I want you to hold together in the same breath at the same time. I liberated the temple, and I invited Rome. I gave my people Hanukkah, and I gave my family a dynasty that eventually corrupted itself. I ruled that life overrides the Sabbath, and I opened the door to leaders reinterpreting faith for political convenience. I died outnumbered on a battlefield, refusing to retreat. Was that faith or stubbornness? Was there ever a difference? 2,000 years of scholars have debated this. Rabbis, historians, theologians. None of them agree. Today it is your turn. If you believe someone you love needs to hear this story today, share this video right now. That is your blessing to give them. Everything you heard today comes from ancient records that have survived 2,000 years. 1 Maccabees, one of the oldest accounts of the Maccabean revolt, recognized in the Catholic and Orthodox biblical canon. 2 Maccabees, a parallel account with a different theological focus, also in the Catholic and Orthodox canon. The treaty between Judea and Rome, referenced in 1 Maccabees chapter 8, corroborated by Roman historian Livy and later by Josephus in Antiquities of the Jews. The death of Judas Maccabeus at the Battle of Elassa 160 BC, recorded in 1 Maccabees chapter 9. The entry of Pompey into Jerusalem 63 BC, documented by Josephus and Jewish War, Book 1. Full source links in the description below. These are not legends. These are not myths. These are documents written by people who were there, or who spoke to people who were. The question was never whether these things happened. The question is what they mean. And that has always been yours to decide. Now you know what I know. The temple, the oil, the treaty, the consequences, the miracles I was part of, and the doors I opened that I never meant to. I have been called a hero for 2,000 years. My name is carved into synagogues, sung in prayers, celebrated every time a candle is lit in December. And I am grateful for that. But gratitude doesn't require blindness. A hero can also be wrong. A liberator can also open a cage he didn't see. A man of deep faith can make a deal that takes generations to unravel. These things are not opposites. They are the same man. They are me. So here is my question for you. Not a historian's question, not a theologian's question, a human question. When you look at my life, the battles won and the alliances made, the miracles celebrated and the consequences buried, which version of me do you see? Time, the hammer of God, the liberator, the man who gave his people back their soul when every empire on earth wanted to erase it. Type A in the comments. Tame be the pragmatic strategist, the man who won the war but planted the seed of a longer, slower defeat. Type B in the comments. Or maybe you see both. Maybe that is the most honest answer of all. Type both and tell me why. Because 2,000 years of history deserves more than silence. And so does this conversation. If this story stayed with you, there is another one waiting. A man who stood in the same city, faced the same impossible choice between faith and survival, and made a decision that split the world in two. That story is coming next. Until then, if you believe truth deserves to be heard, you know what to do. I am Judas Maccabeus. I was not perfect. I was not simple. I was a man who loved God and loved his people and did the best he could with a broken world and a sword in his hand. History will argue about me forever. But tonight you heard my side. The candles still burn. 2,000 years later. Make of that what you will.